I start dating Samuel Nelson, who's known for being a playboy. Everyone thinks I'm hopelessly in love with him. When he skips class to fight, I take notes for him. When he flirts with others, I cover for him. I spent 3 years as the pushover who grovels at his feet. I pour my heart and soul into helping him get into a top college, but just before the semester starts, he dumps me. He says haughtily, "I know you've liked me for a long time, but you always have your head buried in books. Compared to Anna, you're far too dull and uptight. Let's break up. I want to be with Anna instead." Everyone waits to see me have an emotional meltdown. However, I simply check the $50 million that has been transferred to my bank account and reply earnestly, "Sure, I wish you two the best." No one knows that I only devoted myself fully to being Samuel's girlfriend because his mother offered me far too much money to refuse. Now that I have the money, even if he didn't dump me, I would have dumped him myself. Did Irene just wish Samuel the best after he broke up with her? She ended the call in under a minute too. It's like she couldn't care less about it. Do you think she's so heartbroken that she's gone off the deep end? I don't think so. She was too calm about it. It felt more like she's been looking forward to getting dumped. Once those words fell, someone cast a cautious glance at Samuel Nelson. He had his arm around his new girlfriend, Anna Harding, but he was scowling in displeasure. Therefore, the crowd quickly backpedaled. We've all seen how crazy Irene has been about Samuel for years now. There's no way she'd really be unbothered by the breakup. I'm sure she's just trying to bottle up her feelings. I bet that in less than 3 days, she'll come crawling back to him, begging him not to dump her. Samuel's expression eased a little as he remarked, "If she comes begging to get back together with me, I'll consider patching things up with her, depending on what she does." I knew nothing of their conversation as I lugged my suitcase to the train station. Even if I'd heard their taunts and ridicule, I would have simply smirked indifferently. My parents believed that there was no point in giving daughters an education. It was far better to have them married off as quickly as possible in exchange for some kind of benefit for the family. They'd tried to stop me from attending high school. My drunken father had beaten me to within an inch of my life. It was then that Samuel's mother, Mrs. Nelson, approached me and made me an offer. If I could help Samuel get into a top college, she would not only cover all the expenses for my high school education, but also give me $50 million. Had it not been for that, I would never have latched myself onto Samuel, who was famous for being the hottest guy in school, but also the one who should never be crossed. I wouldn't have let myself be at his beck and call, like the most loyal pushover. For 3 whole years, I did everything I could to turn the arrogant and defiant slacker into a high-achieving student who managed to earn a spot at a top college. Now that my mission was complete, I could finally leave with the money. I was nothing if not thrilled. During the 3 months of summer vacation, I got my foreign language certification and achieved intermediate proficiency in the Farvian language. I was able to successfully enroll in a college abroad. As I was about to board my flight to Bari in the country of Farvia, I got a message from Samuel, who seemed to want to mend our relationship. "Why did you block me everywhere? It's been an entire summer, Irene. Haven't you thrown your tantrum long enough? Even though Anna and I have gotten together, you and I can still be friends. Stop kicking up a fuss and unblock me." Every word dripped with his usual haughtiness. He seemed certain that I'd do what I'd done the last 3 years, that regardless of the ways he would willfully trample on my feelings, I would still obediently return to his side. I took out my SIM card and deftly broke it in half before tossing it into the trash can at the airport. With it, I discarded my unbearable past, which had been filled with schemes and humiliation. The plane soared through the sky, leaving all of my past behind. I started a new life in Bari with the $50 million from Mrs. Nelson. I chose to study at the top design academy. My days were filled with learning a new language, becoming familiar with a new culture, and balancing a heavy course load. Everything was a new challenge. But here, I didn't need to appeal to Samuel or a family that suffocated me. Instead, I was surrounded by my pencils, my sketches, and my dreams of the future. The years flew by in a blur. As a result of my hard work and talent, my jewelry designs began to shine at the major fashion week. I won several prestigious international awards. Soon, I was named the new head designer for Lumina, a jewelry brand. I was assigned to return to Carcinia and spearhead Lumina's business expansion into the Pan-Atlantic region. On my very first day back in Carcinia, I was having lunch at a restaurant right beside the office when I heard a hesitant voice calling out from behind me. "Irene Stewart, is that you?" I turned my head around and saw a vaguely familiar-looking woman. She looked like Celia Young, who used to sit in front of me back in high school. Her eyes widened as she openly looked me over, a mix of astonishment and disbelief. "Goodness me, it really is you. You've changed so much," Celia declared. I'd lost the timidness and the forced eagerness to please that I once had in high school. Time and experience had given me composure and an air of confidence. "It's been a while, Celia. It really is you, huh? What a coincidence," Celia exclaimed excitedly. "We're having a class reunion tonight at the rooftop restaurant right here in this building. Many of our old classmates are coming, including Samuel. You have to come too. I'm sure everyone won't be able to recognize you anymore." Samuel? His name was a blast from the past. It had been ages since it popped up in my head. I wanted to decline, but after a moment's thought, I realized there was no reason to deliberately avoid him. "I'll be there," I replied. For the rest of the day, I was fully immersed in work, taking on my new responsibilities at the company. By the time I remembered the class reunion, it was almost time. Too tired to head back to the hotel and change, I simply went straight up to the restaurant in my casual clothes. When I opened the heavy door, I was greeted by a lively atmosphere. The private dining room was huge, and many people were already seated around the massive table. I swept my gaze across the room. Almost instantly, my eyes landed on Samuel, the man seated at the head of the table, basking in the limelight. He now looked significantly more mature than he had back in high school. His features had sharpened and become more defined. He was dressed in an expensive casual suit. He sat at the table in a relaxed manner, always the center of attention. A pretty young woman sat extremely near him. She was all dolled up and dressed in a flashy manner as well. It wasn't Anna. It seemed like he'd swapped her out for a new woman too. Samuel remained silent, but he tightened his grip around his wine glass as he stared darkly at me. Meanwhile, his new girlfriend, whom I later found out was named Tina Upton, couldn't stay quiet anymore. Snorting, she leaned forward with an air of superiority and blatant derision. Irene Stewart, right? I heard about you before. They say you used to follow Samuel around everywhere like a pathetic simp. You did his homework, took notes for him, and even dealt with the teachers for him, right? That must have been so hard on you. Tina paused, savoring the looks of ridicule from the rest of my classmates. But I guess you still had some semblance of self-awareness left. You and Samuel were worlds apart. You knew there couldn't possibly be a future between you two, so you ran off, huh? But it seems like you haven't done too well for yourself. Well, Samuel is now running his family's company, Nelson Group. I've just taken over the reins of my family's fashion brand as well. We're in talks to collaborate with a top international design house. If you're struggling, we can help you. I calmly sipped my water before replying, no thanks. That won't be necessary. Tina glanced at me scornfully before saying in a smug tone, I'm guessing you're unaware of what I can do. Have you heard of Lumina? It's a rising Farvian luxury jewelry brand. Their head designer is a genius who won international awards back in Barrie. She's both brilliant and extremely enigmatic. I had to pull many strings just to establish a connection with her. I'm hoping to get her to design an accessories collection for my family's brand. If she agrees, our collaboration will definitely make a mark on the entire fashion industry. When the time comes, I could easily toss you a few crumbs with just a snap of my fingers. Everyone in the room immediately gasped in awe and began showering Tina with flattery. I know about Lumina. Their pieces are impeccably designed. I heard that their designer is incredible. She's got an exceptionally keen eye. Most people couldn't even dream of catching her attention. You're so well connected, Ms. Upton. It's so impressive that you managed to work with a designer of such high caliber. Only someone like you is worthy of being with Samuel. Tina lifted her chin proudly as she relished everyone's sycophantic remarks. She'd said all those things for the sole purpose of achieving this outcome. What's the name of the designer? Is she really so amazing? Someone asked curiously. She goes by the initials IS, but I heard her last name is Stewart, and she's a Carcinian too, Tina said as she continued to brag about the designer. She's said to be young but extremely talented. She holds a very high standing in the design industry back in Farvia. It won't be easy for a niche brand like mine to collaborate with her, but I'm confident I will succeed. Leaning affectionately against Samuel, she asked, don't you think so, Samuel? Samuel responded with a half-hearted hum. His eyes were still glued to my face. They seemed to be filled with hatred. He refused to look away or say anything. The others continued to taunt and jeer me in order to suck up to Tina. I simply took another sip of water, looking completely unbothered. Just then, there was a knock on the door. A young woman in a fitted business suit came in with a stack of files in her hands. She had a respectful but slightly hurried expression on her face as she said, I apologize for the interruption, Ms. Upton. I'm bringing over the urgent documents for the Lumina project that you asked for. As for the designer, Tina quickly interjected, how is it going with the designer? What did she say? Has she agreed to meet with us to discuss the collaboration in more detail? Tina's voice brimmed with anticipation. Still clutching the stack of document folders, Tina's assistant nodded. I met the designer today, but she already had plans tonight. She agreed to have another meeting tomorrow. The moment the assistant confirmed that she'd personally seen the elusive designer and had a meeting set, Tina broke into a triumphant smile. That's perfect. She paused and cast another meaningful glance in my direction. Irene over there helped my boyfriend out a lot in the past. I heard she still hasn't been able to find herself a proper job. Since she and Samuel were classmates, I figured I'd help her find a steady job just to help her out a little. The room fell silent for a moment before everyone burst out laughing and chimed in happily. Heavens no, Ms. Upton. It's good to be kind, but you really shouldn't get mixed up with people like her, and that family of hers too. That's right, you probably didn't hear about it, but when she ran off without a word back then, her parents came to the school and created such a huge fuss. They caused such a scene, even wailing outside the principal's office, insisting that the school had sold their daughter off to human traffickers. Even the reporters got involved, you know. I can still recall what happened that day. It was a complete circus, and so very disgraceful too. Exactly. She and her family are all the same. They're completely unreasonable. Your fashion brand is just getting started, Ms. Upton. This is a pivotal point in the company's growth. What if her parents barged into the company demanding that you hand her over? What would happen then? Upon hearing that, Tina put on an expression of alarm. Is that true? In that case, I'm terribly sorry, Irene. It's not that I don't want to help you, but my company is finding its footing. We don't have a firm foundation in the industry yet, so we can't afford any scandals. We can't possibly risk getting caught up in trouble from you and your family. After saying that, she purposely scooted closer to Samuel, as if being near me would somehow bring bad luck to her. Samuel simply looked at me. This time, his lips parted slightly. It looked like he wanted to say something to me, but in the end, he suppressed the urge with a stormy look on his face. Everyone else was looking at me as though they reveled to see me being humiliated. Their gazes were filled with condescension and scorn. I couldn't understand why Tina was so eager to give me a job. Still, I remained calm and repeated the rejection I had given Greg earlier. No thanks. That won't be necessary. I have a job. Sighing, Tina remarked, you should really quit that job of yours. I know that being young and beautiful gives you an advantage, but it's easy to catch some kind of disease if you stay in that line of work for too long, you know? The crowd snorted derisively. Even Tina's assistant, Lucy Ziegler, laughed along, but when she spotted me, her expression stiffened. She dropped the Lumina project documents she was still holding, and they scattered all over the floor. The room went silent. Looking utterly displeased, Tina snapped, what are you doing? Can't you—
The private dining room fell into stunned silence. One by one, everyone's heads swiveled toward me. Tina's triumphant smile froze on her face. Well, what did you just say? She asked. Lucy looked as though she'd seen a ghost. She hurried forward, nearly tripping over the scattered documents. Miss Stewart, I didn't recognize you at first because your appearance has changed so much. Then, before everyone's eyes, she bowed. A full 90 degrees. The entire room exploded. What? Miss Stewart, the designer from Lumina? No way. Tina's face drained of color. Lucy continued nervously. Miss Stewart is Lumina's chief designer and the person in charge of the Panopticon expansion project. Silence. Dead silence. The classmates who had spent the last hour mocking me looked as though someone had slapped them across the face. A moment earlier they had been ridiculing me for being unemployed. Now they discovered I was the very person Tina had been desperately trying to meet. The irony was almost painful. Tina forced out a laugh. There must be some misunderstanding. Lucy stared at her. Misunderstanding? She looked genuinely confused. Miss Upton, weren't you the one asking to collaborate with Miss Stewart? The room became even quieter. Someone accidentally dropped a fork.
Clang.
The sound echoed through the room. Tina's lips trembled. Meanwhile, I calmly placed my water glass down. There isn't a misunderstanding. I looked at Lucy. We'll discuss the project tomorrow. Yes, Miss Stewart. Lucy's attitude was respectful to the extreme. The difference between how she treated me and how she treated Tina was obvious. The classmates suddenly began remembering every cruel thing they had said. Their expressions became increasingly awkward. One of them forced a smile. Irene, why didn't you tell us? I shrugged. No one asked. Another classmate hurriedly added, You're amazing. We always knew you'd be successful. I nearly laughed. 5 minutes ago they had been calling me a disgrace. Now they claimed they always believed in me. Human nature truly was fascinating. Tina clenched her fists beneath the table. Her face alternated between red and white. The humiliation was unbearable, especially because she had spent the entire evening boasting about her connection to me. In the end, she hadn't even met me, yet I had been sitting in front of her the whole time. Then Samuel finally spoke. Irene. His deep voice instantly silenced everyone. I looked at him. For the first time all evening, our eyes met directly. Years had passed. The reckless boy who used to skip class and start fights was gone. Yet the arrogance in his eyes remained. Only now there was something else mixed in. Regret. A lot of regret. You've done well for yourself. I smiled politely. Thank you. That was all. No bitterness. No lingering affection.
No resentment.
Nothing. Just a polite response between two strangers. Samuel's jaw tightened. That reaction hurt him far more than anger ever could, because it proved that he no longer occupied any place in my heart, not even enough to hate him. After a long pause, he asked quietly, When did you become the Lumina designer? Several years ago. You never contacted me. The room became awkward again. Everyone could hear the accusation hidden beneath those words. I raised an eyebrow. Why would I? Samuel froze. The question hit harder than a slap. Why would she? They had broken up years ago. She had built an entirely new life overseas. Why would she update him on her achievements? For a moment he looked completely lost. Then he suddenly laughed bitterly. Right. The laughter contained more self-mockery than amusement. He lowered his head. Only then did he realize something he should have understood years ago. The girl who once revolved around him had disappeared. Completely. The atmosphere became suffocating. Desperate to recover, Tina suddenly grabbed Samuel's arm. Samuel, let's go. But Samuel pulled away. His eyes remained fixed on me. Irene. What? Back then, did you ever actually like me? The question shocked everyone. Even Tina stared at him in disbelief. The room fell silent once more. I considered the question carefully. Then I answered honestly.
No.
The single word landed like thunder. Samuel's face turned pale. The classmates looked stunned. For 3 years, everyone had believed I worshipped Samuel. Yet now I was saying I had never liked him. Ever. Samuel laughed again. This time the sound was hollow. So all those years. Your mother paid me. I decided there was no reason to hide it anymore. She offered to fund my education if I helped you get into a top university. The room erupted. What? His mother paid her? Are you serious? I continued calmly. The 50 million was transferred the day we broke up. The truth shattered everyone's assumption. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why I never got jealous. Why I tolerated Samuel's terrible behavior. Why I accepted the breakup so easily. Why I disappeared without looking back. It had been a job. Nothing more. Samuel sat motionless. The blood slowly drained from his face. For years he had convinced himself that I was a woman who loved him so deeply she couldn't let go. He had secretly expected me to regret leaving, to miss him,
To think about him.
Now he discovered the truth. I had never loved him at all, not even once. Everything he remembered as devotion had simply been responsibility, a contract, a transaction. The realization crushed him. Meanwhile, Tina's face twisted. What nonsense. She stood up abruptly. You're obviously lying. I looked at her.
No.
A new voice suddenly sounded from the doorway. She's telling the truth. Everyone turned. A dignified middle-aged woman had entered the room. The moment Samuel saw her, his expression changed. Mom, Mrs. Nelson walked inside. She looked at me with complicated eyes. Then she sighed. Irene is telling the truth. The room exploded for the second time that night. Mrs. Nelson continued. She kept her promise. Her gaze swept over Samuel, and she succeeded far beyond my expectations. Then she turned toward me and bowed her head slightly. Thank you. The richest woman in the room was thanking the girl everyone had spent the evening humiliating. At that moment, every trace of color vanished from Tina's face, and for the first time in his life, Samuel finally understood that the greatest loss of his life wasn't when Irene left. It was that he had never even been given the chance to be loved by her in the first place.